Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Friday Live with Bailey and French, talking about all things humanising work, what's been going on for us this week, as well as what's been going on for our clients and partners and people we're talking to and our friends. Very happy to see you again this morning. Ant, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you.
Good. It's weather's not fabulous, is it? It's not feeling like summer. It feels like we've lost a bit of summer, and I keep hearing that from people, and it's easy to start talking about the weather, but actually it really affects how we feel, particularly in this country, I find. So it's a weird week this week, isn't it, Ant? We've been having some really interesting conversations. Some things are going fantastically well. People are really happy. Everything's literally moving forward at such a pace. And at the same time, there's just this backdrop of terrible things still happening. The news still presenting us with awful stories, the pandemic and the Delta variant raging across the world. How do we kind of contend with that polarization, that difference between what's really going on around us and manage that? I know I feel a little bit numb to it all. It's almost a bit like the things I've been looking forward to and happy for. It's a bit of an anticlimax for those because of the other stuff that's going on. How is that feeling for you?
Yeah, and then you try and escape it by going away on holiday and then realize that it's still the world we live in. So you can't escape that. And even if you're not working, you're still in the world. You're still around the news, and you're still around social media, and you're still around. And so it's kind of then feeling like you can't escape, maybe. Or like you say, there are some really positive and really amazing things happening. So maybe you're kind of going through all of that as well and trying to navigate these really polar opposite emotions from day to day, or maybe even morning to afternoon, which just I think is a very difficult thing to manage.
Yeah, anyway. It is. Yeah. And there's a lot, it's just a very strange situation, isn't it? Because we've got, restaurants open, but they've actually, halved their hours. I spoke to a person yesterday to try and book a table, and he said, you know what, I could squeeze you in, but I'm not going to do that to my staff because I'll lose them. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. He said, I cannot, we're under-resourced, we're all tired. I can't get more people in right now. And if I get any more people coming through the door, that means they're going to just literally be running around like crazy. And we can't do that to them. And that protection of their people, I found really wonderful. I was like, absolutely, no, don't worry, we'll come back. But, it's that interesting piece of you can get something, but what can you get? And then similarly with holidays, I know, unfortunately, and you had this situation of not being able to go on holiday. Similarly, we had holiday booked. It certainly didn't end up a holiday. It's that situation where it feels like, even with the wonderful staycations that we have in this country available to us, unless you booked Cornwall and Devon about 6 months ago, you're probably not going to get a great holiday this year. And we're going to be going into September, into quite a hard winter, potentially, in lots of different ways, with a really tired workforce. Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And like, obviously timing can't be helped, but it was really interesting seeing all the climate change stuff come out again this week. It's another big global problem that you can't quite get your mind around, because it's, there's a lot of research and there's a lot of thinking to be done, and it's not a quick fix. It's not something you can tick off the list and, that's done, that feels good, and that's out of the way. That's a continuous challenge that now I've got in my brain alongside everything else. The HR Grapevine were talking quite interestingly around the role of positive psychology in the workplace, and the role of hope specifically. And that's not new, but it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because holidays are kind of a hope. And we've been talking for a few months now about September being the hopeful month where, we've had our break and we're all going back and we'll all be fine. And September will be lovely. And now we're in August going, that's in 2 weeks. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And I guess the role of hybrid working and the hybrid working models, the new way of working, but also how the team operates and how the manager operates, has become ever more important than it ever has been. But we know this, we've been talking about this for a while, but what practically does that mean? What tools and techniques? What skills are we upskilling people in now that maybe we weren't doing 6 months ago when we were hoping that we would just kind of return to normal? So yeah, there's a lot to think about, isn't there? I think
there is, and what also strikes me is that there's been a flurry on certain social media platforms of people returning back to seeing their teams and their managers for the first time. And I can imagine that certainly with the very different experience based on what it actually what we experience versus what we were hoping to experience is going to be the same for everybody. Everyone's going to be having just complete mixed emotions about what happens. And I can imagine, we're hearing a lot from clients as well. Lots of people are deciding to move roles still. So we had this at the beginning of the summer. Lots of people were moving jobs. They were thinking, actually just want to do something different, can't go on holiday, can't go out anywhere because a lot of people were isolating, but I can change my job. And that therefore gives me a breath of fresh air, something new to get my teeth into, something motivating. And we were talking last week as well about, the opportunity to give people new projects, maybe change things up a bit, have strengths conversations to see where we can collaborate differently with work. So that people don't get that sense of like, oh gosh, do I have to go back to that again? Because even if it was something they enjoyed, if it's something that actually went on through the pandemic, it could actually trigger quite a lot of negative emotion just because that was what was happening at the time of a huge amount of stress. So people are looking for something that gives them a release, an opportunity to do something differently. And in many cases, if the company doesn't offer an option to be able to flex things or even flex how they're working, they're just going to find something else or feel that they don't have a choice and that they need to leave without having that conversation with their organization. And I think there's a growing body of people that are still going to be looking for new roles over certainly for the next 6 to 12 months in order to get that freshness, let's try something new, let's start again, let's revise, let's learn, let's grow. And I think organizations are really going to struggle to retain people. And, we're not immune to this. We are, we're a small business. We have a wonderful team of over 100 people now across the world. And actually, we've been really thinking about what we can do to help people stay with us, because for lots of people who've heard me talk about the business, we want to be an evergreen business that's around for many, many years. We've no plans to kind of blow up for profit and exit and sell, which is the common route for startup organizations. So with that plan for that longevity, that sustainable approach to having a business for the long term, we need to make sure that our model of working with us matches what people go through in life in order to remain with us and stay with us through lots of different life experiences and challenges, positive and negative. And so I was hoping we would share and just have a bit of a discussion about our new human ways of working model. And so and I
think it's a great model, and I think. And this is also something that I know companies are struggling with, especially global organizations, putting in a structure across your organization actually really is probably not the most practical thing that you can do. It really has to also come bottom up and thinking about what the team needs and not just what the individual needs, because I think there's been an awful lot this year about what the individual needs rather than what the team needs from you as an individual who's part of that team. And that's well-being, that's performance, that's growth conversations, that's mentoring, coaching, that's everything. And now also hybrid working, I think. How are we having conversations about, well, it's great that we've got this option for flexible working, but how are we as a team going to operate that and manage that around our clients and around, helping each other and making sure that it's not just what suits you.
And so let me share the model and we can talk about it, because obviously we've been grappling with this ourselves and thinking about how can we make sure that we are doing what we can to bear with me, just share this model, to provide the opportunity to work in the way that people need to, but to do that in a proactive way rather than do that in a reactive way. So we know lots of organizations are very good at responding to people's experiences and challenges when they happen. So if something happens to me and they share with their manager, actually my performance is dropping, my well-being's off the scale because actually I'm really struggling right now. I might be caring for an elderly parent or a sick relative. I might be a new parent, and actually I underestimated how much this was going to affect me in many different ways, physically and mentally. And organizations are great at saying, okay, great, well, let's put this in place in order to get you back into work. And I applaud those organizations. You know, of course, everybody would do that to support their people. I think it's very normal now to help people when they're struggling. But what we really wanted to do here, and this is why we've come up with this model, is we wanted to think about how can we be more proactive with those things that are available to people when challenges arise, but actually offer them to people on a longer term basis, so that actually people working with us can choose to be part of the core team, part of an extended team that perhaps has maybe reduced hours, part of a fully remote and flexible team, or part of our delivery team. And these are lots of different ways that we work at Bailey and French. And rather than creating some kind of one-size-fits-all flexibility for everyone approach, I know lots of organizations have gone the opposite way, and now they're trying to say, right, everyone has to be back in 2 days a week, everyone has to do this, and trying to make a blanket approach for everybody based on new flexibility rules. We've tried to create something that actually works, that responds to different experiences and different, to a certain extent, different life distractions. It's very realistic that people are not always going to be fully focused, fully engaged, fully committed to their work above everything else throughout their lives. You know, there are so many things that happen to us, and people want to, and you've always said this, Ant, haven't you? They want to work in the flow of life rather than live in the flow of work. And for me, this really embodies that opportunity. So I can talk a bit more about that, but in terms of these different ways of working, and this is very much, I think, what you were talking about when you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly it. You know, life being the focus, not work. Work is something we do and it's important, but it's not the whole identity of a human being. And it's interesting because when you look at the Gallup research around, 50% of the workplace is disengaged, and you kind of go, well, I wonder, of those 50%, how many of them are struggling with long-term illness? How many of them are struggling with childcare? How many of them are struggling with all of the other varieties of work, of life, divorce, relationships, friends, moving jobs can be stressful. So that the time that research was published, there's a whole raft of things that would have happened within that one person's life, within that time frame. And yes, that's not to say that workplaces can't be a big part of that. We always say that you're at work a lot of the time. I see my work colleagues more than I see my family, right? That's just the way it is. That's the number of hours that we work. But that doesn't, that doesn't mean that life and work shouldn't be, I don't know, there's something there for me about this model that just enables that kind of flex a little bit more in life. And the focus is around life, but that's not to say that it's not about performance as well. And there's a real tricky balance that I know a lot of companies are struggling with. But I think, again, coming back to my point around teams, if we can make these decisions between us within the teams, that's focused on the team goals and the team outputs, then I think having a model like this where people can have those open discussions about people's life experiences, life motivations that change regularly, life experiences that are happening to those people within those teams, that's for me the important part of this puzzle.
Yeah, I think, and that plays into a lot of obviously our team flow conversations that we talk about. So just for those people who are watching, who are probably squinting to try and expand their screen because there's a lot of tiny writing on here, I'll just briefly explain each of those elements for those people who are interested and just talk about why this is different. So in terms of the core team, this is our core team who are all based in our Brighton office currently. And the focus is that those people are there to help train and develop new people, onboard, induct. They are there for our clients at the core hours of the day that our clients normally work. They have flexibility in terms of hours, start hours, lunchtime hours, finishing hours, and have the opportunity to work from home once a week. But their focus is to be there for all the important company meetings, to be contributing to where the company is going and the strategy and the plan, and be fully involved in that and expected to contribute more than just be consulted and participate in that. So fully involved in what the company is doing in all its aspects. And the different part here in terms of the extended team is that we are offering roles, and we have done before. We've had people work with us who maybe have childcare responsibilities and need to actually start later on a regular basis, or perhaps need to have just 3 days at work rather than maybe 5. And that extended team, the difference here for us is that we're not expecting those people to go home and make up their hours. I certainly don't want any female who's been up in the night breastfeeding, trying to write a report or get ready for a company meeting in the morning and turning up very bleary-eyed, struggling to even see. You know, that's not something that we want to support in terms of wellbeing at Bailey and French. And so we are actually really adapting expectations of that extended team. So we'll work with that individual to understand that actually their role and their contribution is what's possible right now, and that's okay, that there won't be additional expectations of developing others or leading others necessarily. They can do, but they can just do their work at a particular point in their life without having to feel that they're never kind of they're never there at the right times. They're not expected to be in company meetings, can feed into those, but they don't have to be there on particular pieces. And so really it's about removing that guilt. We so much, particularly from parents, about the guilt of feeling that they're not being good enough parent and not being in work and present. And it's removing that determination and that expectation of presence at all times from people when they're experiencing life experiences like becoming a parent. The remote and flexible team piece is for those people who genuinely are very happy being individual contributors, from working anywhere in the world, being able to work to targets, being able to feed into performance metrics and deliver with the company, but that perhaps have completely different other experiences going on around them. And work is very much one part of maybe a portfolio of work that they might be doing, and maybe lots of different careers too. We know people like to change things up. People might like to perhaps, do a degree in something completely separate to the organization whilst still maintaining something that they can do using their current skills and capabilities. And so that fully remote and fully flexible team is ever growing, and for specific roles works really well. And our last kind of biggest circle here is our amazing delivery team, where we have people working for us, but there's no guaranteed hours, and they can turn work down. So it's more of an hourly basis, fully flexible, basically, out there delivering our work. And these are people who have their own independent businesses, often able to work in lots of different ways too, but they're actually delivering for our clients. So very different ways of working, but quite structured at the same time. And the key part here is that none of this is necessarily new. What's new is proactively sharing this with people and saying, if you think you might like to change what's going on for you around your life in the next 6 to 12 months, share it with us. Let's see what we can do to flex the model to make that work for you. We've had a couple of people do that. We've had a parent flex into a delivery team role. We've had from the core team. We've had another person from the core team flex into a full delivery role, and some remote roles too, because they simply wanted to live somewhere else for a while. And that's exactly what we should be doing to support people in terms of flexibility, that will bring the agility into our workforce and allow us to not only grow and expand, but our individual people to grow and expand through their life. So that's me, that's my spiel about the model for those.
Or I might have lost you, Alex. Have I lost you? Well, I might have lost you. In which case, I love this model. Right, as a leader in an organization that has this flexibility, I think it gives me tremendous amount of empowerment to then think about how I structure the team, right? So how does that team look? What people do I need in my core team? What people do I need in my extended team? How can I make use of remote? You're back. I've just got you back. So for me, it really empowers me to think about, okay, I've got my goals, I've got my objectives for us as a team. I know where we want to be heading in 1 and 2, 3 years, but actually, how do I make use of people in different roles? And it massively, massively helps in terms of building diversity. You've mentioned maybe there's global roles that are completely remote. Extended team enables me to hire different levels of experience and different experienced people with different life experiences. Like, this is really, really essential. And plus I've got the core team to really support with onboarding and training and learning and really embedding the culture. It's for any kind of leader, you're right, this isn't necessarily a new model, but how you then go about communicating it and having conversations within your teams about how do we actually make use of this. This isn't just if I want to go to the gym at 1 o'clock, I can go to the gym for an extra hour. This is actually fundamentally, how do we best achieve our objectives? And I think that's the point. So yeah, I really love the model. Big screen now. Alex, I might have lost your sound. I'm not sure. See, these are the sorts of amazing, wonderful things that happen, right? In life, you get thrown things, and work is never that simple. You can hear me, which is always a good thing. And you don't have a problem. So maybe it's just my sound. I'll check it. I still can't hear you, Alex. I'm really sorry. So, okay, so if we've lost sound and we've lost the mic, maybe we can finish here, just and then we can come back next Friday. But I have to say, with that working model, one of the things that I would encourage people who may be listening, and we'll send this out afterwards as an image attached to obviously this session where we're talking about it. But I think what we will really want to be having conversations about is how do we actually do this, and how do we build this into teams? How do we make sure that people aren't, when we're talking about the great resignation, we're seeing a lot of people struggling with retention and also attraction of the right talent, the right people at the right time. How do we build diverse teams? Well, how do we use models like this with simplicity and to have conversations around people's development and what's happening with them in the next 1, 3, 6 months? Don't avoid those conversations. Let's help managers to have those conversations so that we can continue growing and supporting the teams. But let's finish up today. Alex, I'm sorry we've lost you, but really great sharing it, and I think it's a brilliant model. And we'll probably continue to share it, and it would be great to hear, and be great to have some guests on actually who maybe are onboarding similar things and what challenges they're coming up with and how they're communicating. As I said, it's very difficult for small companies to maybe implement, but maybe not. Maybe there are ways. Large companies are doing it slightly differently. So it's great to hear from all of our different clients and people throughout our community. So let's leave it there, and we can come back next Friday, 8:30, because it's every Friday at 8:30 that we have these awesome conversations. Alex, I'll catch up with you later. You can't say goodbye. But this is great, and thank you for everyone that's left messages in the chat. Siobhan, thank you, and Katie, thank you as well for your comments earlier. Brilliant to have everyone. Catch up next week.